Welcome to Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready, we're about to live in your head rent-free. Welcome to episode 94, our Code of Honor episode.
I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis.
All right, guys, this is Robert sitting in the captain's chair, and this is one of our indulging Francis episodes, as he likes to say.
Yes.
Because we are doing, Code of Honor. It's one of the greatest episodes because it's a little more freewheeling than some of the others we do.
Yeah.
And it is also one of our most downloaded episodes.
They are,
which I find very gratifying because, I think this is the most us. This is, I think, where you get to have...
That's a good way of putting it.
It's the most pointless discussion of eternal questions.
Yes, exactly.
There's a lot of pointless and there's a lot of eternal.
Yes.
Okay.
We get the most philosophical here. We get the deepest. We also get the shallowest here.
That's true. That's right.
Well, but it's stuff... I mean, I know this probably sounds odd to people, but, a lot of these quotes are things that really inform our lives. Mm-hmm. They're things that we go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've got to incorporate that notion, that kernel of truth from that quote into my life somehow.
It's a quest for wisdom, which we're always looking for.
Yes.
Yeah,
a quest. Let's go questing.
That's right. Okay.
Questing we shall go. So, Code of Honor, and we have a topic. We almost never have a topic.
Well, we kind of started this with Nietzsche last year,
Yes.
and we were thinking, well,
That's why I said almost never.
That's right. But I think we're going to do more of these. Actually, we are. Looking at the what we've got planned is sometimes we discover, this person that we talk about has a lot of great things that they said. So let's just kind of put a theme to it.
Right.
Which is what we've done this time here. Again,
So,
these guys are indulging me on this one.
We are. But that's all right. We have a great love for some of this stuff too. So we're doing quotes from James T. Kirk, Captain Kirk of the Starship Enterprise, the Star Trek franchise, and he was the first. Well, technically he was the second, but he was the first who made it on air.
That's right.
So,
well, and Shatner / Kirk, again, when you talk about cultural impact, this is a guy.
It's big.
Yeah, he's a vast, rampant cuttlefish of cultural dominion.
Exactly.
Ooh, very good, sir.
As P.J. O'Rourke would undoubtedly say.
Oh,
Yes.
I was giving you credit for it. I'm sorry.
So, I know that the list of quotes that I pulled together is all from the Shatner Kirk. I don't think there's really been much in the way of the Chris Pine Kirk.
Well, we like Chris Pine, of course,
but I mean, as far as quotable stuff.
Yeah.
But these episodes are about...
Or movies. Yeah. Oh, yeah. These
episodes that we're doing, these are about Shatner because...
It's his birthday this month.
It's his birthday.
That's correct.
William
Yes.
Shatner turns 90 in March, and these are our March episodes, so...
Yep.
Yeah, so we're doing a Shatner-paloozza this time around. 3 weeks of nothing but all Shatner all the time.
Don't drive him away.
No.
Just kidding.
Who doesn't, other than George Takei, who doesn't love Shatner? Well, Michelle Nichols doesn't like him. I mean, we can make a list, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well,
but
yeah.
Nevertheless, we love Shatner. We think he's the best.
We're going to stick with the same format we usually do. Francis and Martin are going to go first, and I will follow up with a final quote. Because this is topical, I don't know for sure how well I'm going to be able to hammer this one home. So I think this one's a bigger challenge than I've had in the past.
But
I am up to it.
You're up for it because you're wielding mighty Mjolnir.
That's right. I have, as Darcy would say, I have Mir.
I have Mew.
And I'm ready to hammer it home.
That's right. It is here.
You're worthy. Right. You're very worthy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So which one of you guys is going first?
I would like to have Francis go first. I mean, it's his thing, so
okay,
let's have Francis.
I think that's good. That's good.
That's fine. That's no problem. I'm going to give you all a quotation. There's tons of them. You guys know I can roll Kirk off the tongue all over the place.
Did you even have to Google anything?
Only for clarity, but no, every one of these I knew. I could have pulled these out.
See, we had to Google to get a decent list.
But this one here, especially not, because I use this constantly. That just shows the veracity of how well that, the writers for Trek, I mean, ultimately that's where these come from.
Yeah, they're really not Shatner. They're the Trek writers.
Exactly.
But he still has to deliver them in a way that gives them meaning.
That's correct. And he does that in spades very, very well. The episode I'm going to use, the quotation I'm going to use comes from one of the episodes in the original series, The Ultimate Computer, second season. It's, for those of you who may not know, it's the one where The M5 Multitronic computer gets installed aboard the Enterprise to take everything over, and ultimately it goes insane, and there's a great big battle at the very end of the episode against 4 Federation starships, which is totally hella cool. And Kirk,
especially in the remastered version.
yes, yeah, because they
And that would have been quite a challenge to portray in 1966.
Yes, the original
67.
version, they're taking the same model and they're doing some really funky stuff with it photographically. But with the remastered version, they're actually able to show some real serious space battles going on here. And of course, Kirk saves the day at the end by simply talking to the computer, talking the computer to death. It's not the first or last time they would do that, but it really, it's full of drama. It's also full of the human equation, that human piece, because by M5, this all-powerful computer taking over, the captain himself is disenfranchised. He's displaced, and there's even a line in there that talks about
Captain Dunsel.
Captain Dunsel, that's right.
It becomes superfluous.
Yeah, exactly. He becomes irrelevant, and Kirk and McCoy had this banter between each other, and McCoy brings him what is called a Finagle's Folly, which is some sort of a drink. He says, I make a Finagle's Folly that's known from here to Orion. I strongly prescribe it. And they sit and drink with each other, like we're doing now with our bourbon, and talk about the nature of life and productivity and how life changes and things don't go well always. And they also talk about...
It's a very pointless discussion of an eternal question.
That's exactly right. Where do you think
it's a very Snakes and Otters moment.
Very much it is. That's right. And one of the things they also start talking about is the fact that, this computer can't be all that it's supposed to be. And they go into the backstory of Dr. Richard Daystrom, who created this, who was a boy wonder who created, years ago, all the computer systems that are used. He's kind of like the Bill Gates of his day. They created this...
Or the Steve Jobs.
Or Steve Jobs, depending on your preference, who creates this marvelous operating system, but is never able to equal that later. And it's
He peaked too early.
He peaked early, and Daystrom himself...
And that's a theme Trek would revisit often.
Very much so.
Throughout the different series.
Which
what
is...
do you do once you peak?
Absolutely, because how human versus technology. How do you work on that? That's all the stuff that's webbed to it. And William Marshall was the actor that portrayed Daystrom in the episode. And he does a fantastic job. He has a nervous breakdown at the end while he's trying to wrestle with this stuff.
You are great. I am great.
That's right. He talks about colleagues laughing behind my back at the boy wonder and becoming famous, building upon my work. All that's put all in here, and Kirk kind of defends this. Which, from his position in the episode, of course he is, because he's the one that's displaced. He's saying that men must do what they have to do in order to remain men. That's not my quote, but it's kind of like man versus technology. And the quotation I'm going to give you talks about this whole peaking early business. He says, "Genius doesn't work on an assembly line basis. You cannot simply say, 'Today I will be brilliant.'" And that, to me, is such an amazing quotation about the power of creativity and how it is not up to us. It is not our genius. It is not our abilities, but something God-given. Inspiration, call it what you want. Genius, call it that. I mean, that's what the quote says. I'll repeat it again. Genius doesn't work on an assembly line basis. You can't simply say, "Today I will be brilliant."
There has to be inspiration.
Well, there's more to it than just our own.
Right. If it were an assembly line, it's not genius.
That's right.
Because it's insert tab A into slot B. An assembly line is you do the same thing over and over and get the same results.
That's right.
Genius is you do something different to get different results.
Right. And the assembly line is, in certain respects, a little bit dehumanizing.
Oh, it's a lot dehumanizing.
Yeah, I was being kind. But creativity is an inherently human function. It's a necessity for us as human beings, but it is not on our own merits alone. We contribute, of course, because that's why some can be geniuses and others not. And talent does have something to do with that. But ultimately, that's kind of the point again.
Yeah.
Because what you have, everything you have is a gift. Your ability to be a genius comes from God. Call it what you want. But it's inherent to us.
Yeah.
It's a spark that we all have. Yes.
So I see why you use that frequently then.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Because there's that idea is expressed lots of different ways.
Yes.
The great inventor Edison, supposedly famous for saying, okay, you can fail 10,000 times. That's necessary, basically.
Well,
it's okay to fail a lot and then keep going.
Right. Well, it's how he I think the quote you're looking for is somebody asked him, well, how does it feel to fail 10,000 times trying to create the light bulb? He says, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I simply discovered 10,000 ways not to create a light bulb.
Yeah.
Give or take a little.
There were 10,000 successes in not finding a light bulb.
Right.
But it just takes the one.
Exactly.
That's right, because ultimately those 10,000 failures contributed to the ultimate success.
They inform your approach.
And that quote's it's kind of inherent in the quote here is, you've got to do the work. He says, because what follows right after this, he says, no matter how long it took, he eventually came up with Multitronics, which was the system that was the basis of this computer here. And that's kind of the thing is hard work is essential to genius. But that just by itself will not get you there.
Because mules work hard.
Well, that's a very good way of putting it, yes.
Yeah. So, but
assembly line workers work hard, but it's working hard and creativity are not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
Creativity...
They're both necessary. You've got to have both.
So, I'm going to be a little contrarian here.
Okay, good.
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah, okay, well, it's the whole point of the discussion is to explore opposing viewpoints here.
Yes.
So...
No, you're the devil. You cannot oppose my evidence.
That's right. So... I agree with very much with the quote, but how you interpret it, I have some issue with. Yes, I agree that all of our gifts are God-given because life is a gift itself.
Sure, yes.
I disagree that I cannot say, today I will be brilliant. Because...
Okay.
Especially in the context of genius and creativity, which is where we often go is the creativity.
Right.
I absolutely can say, today I will be creative. Because creativity in itself is also a process. So, in many ways, this quote works and it doesn't work.
Oh, interesting.
It's about output. The quote is.
Yes, it's about output. It's about output.
That's what you don't want to focus on. That you want to focus on the process.
Well, exactly, because I think the process is important. Yeah. Now, it's not the same as an assembly line where I do the exact same thing every single day. Because that's an assembly. That's the very nature of an assembly line. You do the one job or a couple of jobs in the same place, in the same fashion, with the same materials every single day. That is not creativity, as we've said. However, there is a process. Most great artists and writers will tell you certain things are always true. Yeah. So, since we are both working on writing projects, and Martin has got an idea that he is germinating, so soon we will all be working on our own writing projects. And also, we do have the joint Snakes and Otters book series coming.
We hope.
That's right.
We will.
That's right.
We will.
My man Robert's very confident. I love that.
Yeah. Yes. So, most great writers will tell you that you have to have a schedule and keep to it. So now, in many sense, writing is doing the same motions in the same place in the same way every day.
Well, there's a dichotomy for you. Yes,
because there's a process.
You gotta
stick to it,
and you have to stick to it.
Oh, well, that's correct.
Because I also do the visual arts. Although I have not spent as much time on that in recent years, I do miss spending. You just don't have the time for all the things I want to do.
Yeah. You're a man of many parts.
I am. So even with the visual arts, you have to be consistent. You cannot take a day off. I mean, you can, but you cannot make it a habit to take.
But you don't want to deviate from your process,
right? Well, in the sense that you're not the process of the actual creation, but the process of
the craft.
That's a good way to put it.
Yes, we always celebrate it. So I get where you're going.
Stephen King is notorious, and you know this.
Yes,
he always writes so much every single day. He doesn't take days off. I mean, that's his job. And
he writes on his birthday, on his wife's birthday, Christmas, Easter, 7 days a week.
That's what he does.
But actually, no. There's one day he does take off.
I forget what he says.
I think it might be Christmas or his birthday. But there's one day he doesn't write, but that's it.
Right, and his family knows that. Of course, he's been successfully married for a gazillion years.
Yeah.
She's part of the process. She's actually one of his early. I guess you'd call her an alpha reader. For everything
what you would call it
does.
today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, she is the reason that he got the success that he has, because she fished out the Carey manuscript out of the garbage.
That's right. That's right.
And that's the first book that was published.
Because he hated it. He thought it was awful, and she rescued it. It got sent off, and he got
That's a $400,000 advance.
Say $400,000 advance from a book. This is in 72, 73.
Early 70s.
Incredible amount of money.
That's an incredible amount today.
Right. Well, because
back then,
but when gas is 45 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
Well, and he's living in a basement of almost like a hovel. I mean, the places he lives. If you read his book on writing, he tells the story about how
he was a struggling English teacher.
That's right, and he was not expected to do very well in life.
But he had published a lot of short stories.
Yeah.
And a lot of articles. Like Playboy had published quite a few. Now back then, that was a big deal. You get in Playboy, you have hit the big time as far as short stories.
It's got national, because they had a lot of those stories in there. Well, all the Bond books were serialized in there in the 60s.
Because you know what? It's odd for people to realize, but people actually did read Playboy for the articles sometimes.
I know, that's
now, granted, they also looked at the pictures. Don't get me wrong.
Don't get me wrong.
Well, Hefner did not build. It was not really a smut mag. It was
right. He was not Larry Flint.
No,
I mean it's still pornography.
It is, but it was Esquire with nudes. That's what he basically what he wanted to do, because he worked at Esquire before that. We're getting off from around.
Yeah, we are. But the point is, though, back to the creativity. I think that you do have to follow certain things, because let's take Albert Einstein as a great example. So Einstein, he was famous for minimizing the distractions. Right? Mm-hmm. So there's a story once he needed to go to his house. So he's like taking a cab or something. He's like, well, where are you going? I was like, I don't know. I don't know my address. I was like, why don't you know your address? Because I can look it up. He didn't need to remember, because he why clutter his mind with things like that? He wore the same clothes every day. So not same actual clothes, but he had like 10 shirts, 10 pair of pants, 10 jackets, all the same. So he could just grab something. He didn't have to worry his mind about what he was going to wear.
He didn't have to make decisions that were extraneous to his goals.
Exactly.
That's goal driven. That's kind of what we're kind of talking about here. Is creativity can be goal driven. In fact, it must be goal driven.
Yeah, because if you're not working on something, you're not really being creative. We could sit around and talk about our book projects all day long, but if we're not actually working on them,
yeah, that's a huge, and there's millions of people out there that have these. If you read Quora, you hear it all the time. I got this idea. How do I get somebody to write it for me? And usually
you don't.
Exactly. Mercedes Lackey will come back and she'll just say, "Rolling on the floor laughing."
Yeah. If it's an idea that you want somebody else to write, it's not really your idea.
That's right. And
I mean, you may have thought of it, but
ideas are a dime a dozen. Writing is a hard, laborious process of putting words on paper and making them good. And she says it takes about 1 million words to get good before you really start there.
And, there's probably a lot of truth there.
Probably a lot of truth on that.
When you look at great writers, and I think Stephen King is a great writer.
Oh, yeah.
Not just in quantity, but in quality. I've talked about this before. His early works compared to his later works, and as you read the books in the order he's written them, you can see the progression. He has mastered his craft. I love that, and that's the thing I love about him the most anymore.
Oh, yeah. And he's in many respects the greatest living fiction writer. I mean, certainly the most successful.
Oh, yeah.
And he took a genre that really almost didn't exist and made it something.
Well, it was a pulp fiction kind of pulp novel.
It was never mainstreamed
genre.
into novelizations much. I guess you would say you'd had some paperback books, but they were a different.
Right, they were not mainstream. Is the point?
Exactly, that's right.
It was very niched. But again, he has a system that he follows to be creative, and the reason he follows that is because it gets rid of all of the other distractions.
Just like Einstein.
So you cannot put creativity or genius, because to me, genius and creativity are the same thing. They are hand in hand.
They're certainly.
And you can't say I'll be a genius, but yes, you can. I can. I don't say
you can be focused.
Yeah, because really, that's what it is.
You can be creative, but your output, and I think that's what the quote's about, may or may not be
right.
And that's what you can't control necessarily.
Right.
The quality of the output.
If on any particular day you may not have a brilliant idea or write a brilliant sentence. Although, personally, I think if you're trying to write one brilliant sentence a day, you're an idiot. Because all successful writers will also tell you, just put the frickin' words on paper.
That's right.
Or if you're in the visual arts, just put the lines or the paint on paper or on the canvas. Yeah. Because it's more important to do the work. Mm-hmm. The work itself is how you become brilliant, how you get better. Mm-hmm. And until
practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect. It really does. Yes. Any musician will tell you.
Yeah, inspiration plus practice.
Yes.
Gives value.
Genius is just as much inspiration as perspiration.
And that's goes right back to Edison.
Right. Yeah. Which you cannot have it without both.
Yeah.
You really can't.
In some levels.
Interesting.
Fantastic, folks.
Sorry, I didn't mean to dominate your
no, you didn't.
Your quote there.
No, because we went deep with that, and that's kind of the whole point when we do these things here.
So my turn?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I went a little bit different. I went to the movies rather than the episodes of the original series. Mm-hmm. I went to Wrath of Khan, which is pretty much everybody's favorite Trek movie.
Yeah,
it's still the standard for me.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of a cheat because it's kind of something Kirk really gets from Spock.
Right.
And Spock's analytical, logical mind. And let me make sure I get it exactly right here. He's in the Genesis cave, and I believe he's speaking to Savick. And he says, "As your teacher, Mr. Spock, is fond of saying, I like to think that there always are possibilities." Mm-hmm. And that one means a lot to me because that whole word of possibilities. If you think that there are no possibilities in your life, then there is no creativity, there is no enjoyment. There's no joy.
It's drudgery.
Yeah. And
you are Job. Life is a drudgery.
Yeah.
I was part of the reading
a few weeks ago.
Early February. And it's the opening line of that particular reading was, "Isn't life a drudgery?" And he goes on and on about how bad it is. That's a man without possibility.
Yeah. When we first discussed this, it was strictly a possibility. Mm-hmm. Hey, recording audio's not difficult. The software is free. We got a microphone. We got computers.
And we talked for years about why aren't we recording this stuff?
Mm-hmm. Why isn't Snakes and Otters a reality? It was just a possibility then. Mm-hmm. Now it's a reality.
But we did the work.
Well, that's exactly right. That's ultimately you have to do that. Well, that's one of the things that you hear about from all those aspiring writers. Well, I'm gonna write a book one day. No, that's ridiculous.
You are if you are a writer, you have to write every day.
That's right. Exactly.
That's what Stephen King will tell you. And most writers
You're constantly writing. You're constantly writing. And if you're not writing, you're probably thinking about writing when you're not writing.
Yeah.
There are always possibilities. Look at the world that there's not just one door or two doors. Right. There are lots of doors.
Infinite number, you might say.
See what might be, not what is.
Yeah. You could walk through any of them and you don't know what's going to be on the other side. What's on the other side might be an awesome creative outlet like a Snakes and Otters podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that quote is quintessentially American. I think it really is part and parcel of our cultural identity. Although, honestly, I think our cultural identity is shifting.
We're losing a lot of this, unfortunately.
I think we are. Which, maybe our younger listeners think, well, that's a good thing, but I would disagree.
Yeah, we are getting into a conformity of mind.
Yes.
That's being imposed on. Well, you can't think that way because that might offend some person that's part of a group that has 3 members.
Right. Well, and even though...
we're not intending to offend, but we have to be more resilient than that.
Right. I think the worst...
When did the free exchange of ideas become a threat?
Not that long ago.
I know.
Yeah. But it is now. It basically is now.
And to me, that's the key issue that is the problem with that, is rather than seeing the possibilities in the exchange of free ideas, what we are saying is, no, we don't want you to think that way because we think that thinking is bad. So, and granted, some ways of thinking, we don't want people to think in racist ways.
Yeah.
Or in discriminating ways, because that's dehumanizing. But as soon as you start either culturally or with the power of the state telling people how to think, you have doomed yourself as a society.
We no longer see the possibilities as positive.
Right.
We only see the negative possibilities.
Right. Because
We
then
only
you
see
start conforming.
Yeah, we
out
only
of
see
fear.
the injurious possibilities, so then we are captives to fear. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. We become captives to fear, and all the joy of life is gone, and we're walled off from the possibilities.
Seeing the possibilities implies there's courage. Not being able to see the possibilities implies there is fear.
Robert hammers it again.
That's right. Well, I mean,
Possibilities are all about courage.
absolutely. And who is more courageous than James T. Kirk, folks? I mean, come on.
Risk is our business.
That's
right.
That's right. Yet another one of the quotes. We're not using that one today, I don't think. We
just did.
Well, that's what I just did.
Just as an illustration, we use one of the others too.
Yeah.
Right, and Robert, of course, doesn't tell us what he's going to do when he gets to it.
Well, and I just want to give some credit. Nicholas Meyer is pretty much the whole creative force, and Harv Bennett behind Wrath of Khan.
Right.
And Nicholas Meyer, I believe,
They were phenomenal together.
wrote those lines. But that's every day in my life. I'm an IT person, and when you work in IT, you have to think about possibilities. Mm-hmm. Well, what
Yes,
fixes
and
fixes X? Well, if this doesn't work, we've got something else.
I do want to say this, too, here, because possibilities and alternatives are different things. There was a quotation in the Galileo 7 by Spock about, there are always alternatives, Doctor. That is a different type of program than possibilities.
Alternatives are set.
Correct.
Possibilities
That's A, B,
are,
C, or D.
Yes.
As opposed to A, 12, 9,
That's right.
Q, red,
infinite
black.
number, exactly.
Right.
And I want to draw that out because it's easy to remember that quote from Spock. This is very much deeper than
Right,
that.
because this quote is in the context of the discussion of the Kobayashi Maru test.
Correct.
Savick
Yes.
famously fails it at the start of the film.
Because she's meant to fail it.
And what's Kirk's solution? He's the only, as McCoy says, the only cadet who ever beat the Kobayashi Maru.
The no-win scenario.
To beat the no-win scenario. Because he reprogrammed it. His son says, well, you cheated. He says,
Changed the conditions of the test.
I changed the conditions
Now-
of the test. I got a commendation for original thinking.
Now, this is different than the Chris Pine, who did cheat. Because he rigged the scenario.
Right.
It was his way of rebelling. He was a rebel, whereas the Shatner Kirk he's a vastly different Kirk.
Very much so, yes.
He really is.
Yeah.
And not just because of the actors. I think Chris Pine does a fantastic job. He's a great actor. I like him.
Yeah.
But his Kirk is different because of how it's written.
Yeah. And the backstory is different.
And the backstory is vastly different.
Yeah, which
But
makes...
how can Chris Pine's Kirk not be great? His dad is Thor.
That's
But
right.
when you take the entirety of the conversation with Savick in this context of, I don't like to lose, I don't believe in the no-win scenario, there are always possibilities. And like you said, that's different from alternatives. Alternatives are these hard set choices, and possibilities are creative at their core.
There's another layer here, too, which I think is important based on what you just said. When Savick asks him that question, she thinks that they're hopeless, that they're stranded inside Regula 1. And Kirk already has the plan figured out. He's already done the work.
Because when she comes
He's
to
not
him,
telling anybody.
Yeah.
when she comes to him, he says, "Are you asking if we're playing out the no-win scenario here?"
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, well, no, actually, we're not, because we get.
It's right. It's somewhat tongue-in-cheek
Got the ace
here.
up my sleeve,
Exactly.
like Kirk always does.
As he says when he flips the communicator just a little while later, when the time runs out, and he says, "Okay, I don't like to lose." He's already done the work, like you say. It's already in place.
That's why he looks brilliant.
Yes, that's right.
Because he draws upon years of experience and tactics, and which we see later in the space battle,
Right.
The
two-dimensional
inexperience.
thinking. Yes.
Yes, and he uses that ahead of. He prepares the way, which is what a good commander
You
does.
already have it all figured out, and
Now-
you've got a plan in place.
And oddly enough, though, because again, these tie together very well. You guys have tied your topics together just about as
Without
well as
meaning
I could.
to.
Yeah, without meaning to.
Well, that's what we do. You know that we're very good
But
at that.
in a way, it's like your quote about being brilliant. You have to do the work ahead of time. I wasn't he says you're an overnight success. No, I'm not. It took me 20 years to be an overnight success. And that's kind of the same thing. You have to put in the time and the effort.
I mean, everybody's an overnight success when they're discovered. It's like, hey, you've got ability and talent, and this product you're putting out is really good. Well, because it took years to hone it and get it right and get there. I mean, that's songwriting, painting, novels, whatever. So, gentlemen, are we ready for a bourbon break?
It is time for a bourbon break.
That's now the official name of this pause in every episode now is Snakes and Otters Bourbon Break, because we, like Stan Lee, love our alliteration.
Absolutely,
we do.
Yes.
Today, we are drinking. Francis and I are drinking the what is
Quarter
it?
Horse.
Yes,
Quarter Horse Reserve from
Horse
the
Reserve,
O.Z. Tyler Distillery in
That's
Owensboro,
right, the
Kentucky.
square bottle, which is what led you to buying it, if I recall correctly.
Something like that, yeah.
It was,
got
it was
noticed.
part of it anyway.
Yeah.
And it is smooth. I actually put a cube of ice in mine. I haven't been doing that lately. And it chilled it very, very effectively. I've forgotten how much I missed that. It's got a little burn and it got a little bite.
But even that is smooth.
It is smooth. That is correct.
It's not a harsh one. I haven't had a sip in several minutes, but I can still feel that warmth in the back of my throat.
Yes, very much so.
Down through to the top of my stomach, which, again, one of the things I find fascinating about the different bourbons we've tried, which has been quite a few now. Certainly we've barely scratched the surface because we return to the ones we like a lot, but each one has a different burn. Different way it affects your palate and your senses.
It's weird when we started analyzing it that all that comes out.
Yeah, sometimes it's early, sometimes it's late, sometimes it's in the mouth, sometimes it's in the throat or the stomach, or sometimes it's even in the nostrils, the sinuses.
Yes.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, part of why we don't move on is we got to finish these things before we can buy more.
Exactly.
So, listeners, I am very, very excited because the fellas are back here at Studio M.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Nakatomi Plaza.
Yeah, 30th floor of Nakatomi Plaza, behind the waterfall and down the hall from Ellis. Mm-hmm. We've got my bourbons out, and the guys are partaking. So again, they've got the Quarter Horse Reserve, but I am hitting what's rapidly becoming a real favorite for me, and that's Bullet.
Yes.
The Bullet Frontier Bourbon.
Whiskey. Yeah.
Yes, I'm doing that one next. I almost did this one the first time. I thought, I haven't done the Quarter Horse a lot, so we'll stick with this one.
Yeah, so the Bullet is the lowest level of the three I've got sitting here.
You're trying to finish it off. Okay,
so
we'll help you with that next episode.
Yes. We'll finish that off, but the Bullet's really good. It's very popular. I mean, we don't have to really do a review of it. It's very popular, has high sales. But yeah, it's good. It's got a powerful flavor, but not a harsh flavor. So
yeah, very few do we run into the harshness.
Yeah,
I think maybe that's because we're getting better at.
Well, yeah, but I mean, as my former pastor likes to say, even a bad bourbon is still bourbon.
Amen.
I think the harshest one we've done is the Devil's Cut. And it's really, I don't find it that harsh.
Not at all.
No. But it's a powerful bourbon. That's a good way to put it.
I like that word. That's very much so.
But that was good stuff.
Yeah, it was. Now it's not my normal favorite, but for a change of pace, I like it.
Yeah. You still have some, right?
Yeah, I do.
When we're at your place next, that's what we need to try again, because it's been a long time since we had any of that. For me anyway.
Yeah, I haven't had any of that. I need to get another bottle of Woodford. I'm out of that.
Yeah, but you always have the Four Roses, which again is another one that we three.
I'm going to get the small batch the next time when it's time to replace that bottle, because the last couple has been the lower end, the $20 bottle.
Yeah, the entry level,
which is a phenomenal. I mean, for $20, it's oh my gosh. To me, it's the same kind of value that Double Oaked gives you.
Yeah.
For the $1, it's up there value wise with Pappy to me. I mean, it's not Pappy, but for comparatively what you pay, oh my gosh, you can't beat that kind of value. And this Four Roses is in that same category. Just $20 bottle of bourbon is fantastic.
Yeah, I need to get back and either get a bottle of Knob Creek.
Yeah.
Regular standard Knob Creek is amazing.
Yeah.
And of course, I always like Elijah Craig, which is another one that's just kind of on that lower end. But I always thought that was such a good, flavorful, smooth, had that great maple flavor taste.
Yeah.
That maple syrup almost.
Well,
without it being heavily maple.
Right, like the
sweetened.
Knob Creek maple that I have,
Yeah.
which is, as I like to call it, my breakfast bourbon, because it makes me think of sausage and pancakes.
I do love it.
You're
There's
making me
doubt.
hungry now. I love that kind of breakfast food. So
Yeah, that's comfort food, man.
yeah.
All right, so it's time for me to bring us on home, and I gotta say, you guys have done some great quotes because they fit so well together. So before we go into mine, because I'm torn. I gotta say, I'm torn still.
Really?
Yeah. So you had the genius doesn't work on an assembly line basis. You can't simply say, today I will be brilliant. And you had as your teacher, Mr. Spock likes to say, I like to believe that there are always possibilities. Right. So to me, that's speaks a lot to that, to the human condition that we are all about.
Yeah.
The whys and the creativity.
That's what Roddenberry celebrates with Star Trek. Is
He does.
the human aspirations.
Right. I think he's a little
what's powerful about humanity.
Yes. What is right and good about humanity. Now I think he goes a little off the rails when he gets later, because he gets very socialist in what are ludicrous ways.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with the idea that your society is so advanced that there's no hunger and there's no sickness. We should all aspire to that in whatever form that takes, if we can. But the whole idea, for instance, that there's no money. We don't work to better ourselves. Really, how am I bettering myself by keeping my restaurant open all day long?
Yeah.
And, where am I getting the food? What am I getting in return for cooking it?
As advanced as we are, somebody has to assemble starships.
Exactly.
And they're not doing that to better themselves.
Right.
They want to get paid.
Right. So,
Very well put, sir.
if they don't, wow. I need some. How would you come and mow my lawn? Better yourself that way.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yes, production still requires some type of.
There's an exchange of value somehow.
Yes, exchange of value.
And-
That's all money is.
Right.
Like P.J. O'Rourke famously says, "Why is this rumpled green piece of paper with the picture of a disreputable president on it worth more than this cleanly folded sheet of pure white paper that I just blew my nose on?"
Right.
Because we ascribe value to it.
We like to talk about gold having an inherent value. It has no inherent value. Everything that we put a dollar price on, or just any medium of exchange, it's like, I think that this gold is worth 3 Buicks. No, it's still, prices fluctuate because we have different and changing scales of value.
That's all capitalism is. I have 3 baskets, you have 2 spears. I need spears, you need baskets.
Right.
Let's trade.
Exactly. I would call that more of a market economy, but
Yeah.
because there's no capital involved in that.
Yeah.
In the liquid sense, but that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah. His point was that since you can produce anything,
right. Once you have a replicator, it really does change the economics.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah. All right, so I have several favorite quotes because we all do.
Sure.
Kirk is very quotable, and the one that I like to use during the discussions that we have often is one man with a vision. Now the full quote of that is, in every revolution, there's one man with a vision.
I was expecting you to go to that one actually, because that's kind of your thing.
It's a great one. It really is, and I think I could play that into this.
You could.
There's also another one that is really great. It's also from Wrath of Khan. We learn by doing.
Oh, I love that one. Yes.
Now, this one, I think, is where I'm going to... Also, I don't believe in the no-win scenario. I think these are 3 that I've been shifting between, but I think I'm going with we learn by doing. Because I think that really does...
We've been talking about that.
That's what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It really is. We learn by doing, but we create by doing. The possibilities are doing is possibilities expressed.
Ooh, that's really good. Yes,
possibilities expressed.
Doing
is
the
doing.
Is the
doing.
doing
Doing's important. We've discussed that before.
Yeah.
That yes, thinking is great, Putting
What do
your
you do
thoughts
with it?
into action. Doing.
That's right. Ideas are a dime and a dozen, but a true writer is writing,
Yes.
putting them down
A
on
true
paper.
podcaster is podcasting.
That's right.
It was only a possibility, now it's a reality.
Because
We're
we are doing.
Because-
and
and
we
there
have
is
learned a
action.
great deal.
And there's an
from our
infinite
doing.
amount of difference between the possibility and the reality.
Yes. So you know, and it's a great point. We all have values. I like to talk about values a lot.
Oh, yes.
Everybody has a system of values, whether it's recognized or not.
Right.
Because you just have, and I would term values like this: it's what's most important to you, whether it be concepts or people. I start with the concepts when I think about my values.
Right.
But I don't think you stop there. There's also the expression of those values, or as I would call it, an action statement to go with the value. It's how that value is to be primarily expressed in your lives. How do you live out that value? Again, that's the doing. Because as Francis, you said, the thought, the idea, without acting upon it, well, it really is immaterial. It's nothing. Because you can't touch a thought. Telepaths aside.
Wow.
You can't touch an idea
Interesting.
until it's been built.
Ideas have power.
They do. But the power is in how they motivate people to act.
Yes, because ideas themselves are essentially neutral and ephemeral. They don't exist.
I don't know about neutral,
But without action, the possibilities become alternatives.
Maybe.
They become
maybe.
fear.
Maybe, yeah. I can
or,
see that.
Or the fear holds you into just viewing them as alternatives,
If you
not
don't-
possibilities. So
Yes.
you act.
Because without acting, without the doing, to learn by, to put into action these things that you believe or have learned, the possibilities never expand beyond where they are now. So yes, that's how they would become alternatives. Because you got possibilities 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Well, as we act and as we grow and we change, that becomes 6 through 15.
Yeah.
And then that becomes 16 through 100.
Yeah. Yep.
And if we don't act, we're stuck with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those become the only alternatives. So the idea, well, obviously, pointless discussion of eternal questions, we're all about the ideas. But we also, when we talk about craft, that's putting the ideas into action.
Yeah.
That's why we
Craft
learn
is
by
the
doing.
Yeah.
We
Craft is
grow
the doing.
by doing, by thinking and doing. There for us, I would have to say they are all tied together.
It's a match set.
It is.
Yeah.
If you have one without the other, it's meaningless. Because if you do without the idea behind it, you're a mindless barbarian. But if all you do is think about something, you're a slave to somebody else.
Wow. That's...
Man, Robert, you were so on it. You pulled it off
There's
again.
a presumption of holistic integration here, where we have to be complete, and doing and ideas together is what makes us fully human.
Yes. It is part and parcel. You cannot separate the
stuff.
humanity from the thinking.
Well, you
and the
must
doing.
not. It is.
Well, yes.
Of course.
To be fully human, you cannot.
Because we do it all the time.
Yeah.
But to our detriment when we do so.
Right. We often talk about that being fully human. And when I say that, I don't mean somebody is subhuman.
Right.
I mean they're not living
The
out the
best
fullest
version.
extent of their humanity.
What Lincoln would call the better angels of our natures.
Yes. The best version, that's a great way to put it nowadays. It's very popular, the best version of myself.
Right.
And you can only get better through experience. Because, experience is the greatest teacher.
Yeah.
It's like the Edison thing. He learned 10,000 ways not to have an incandescent light bulb. 10,000 ways that did not work. So that's a learning experience. Now, for some people, after the first 100, they may drive them to give up. But he also was one of those guys who woke up every day and was like, yeah, I'm going to be brilliant today. I'm going to do something.
I'm going to figure it out.
I'm going to figure it out.
I'm going to couple the idea to my actions, and we're going to figure it out, and humanity is going to advance.
Because, I'll bring this in, he was one man with a vision.
Oh.
All right?
Well, that's true because, you can say that about Kirk. He had a very clear vision, and I like the idea of spending just a second or two on the value of that. Because the ideas that you have do require a vision.
Yes.
To go
It's a
through.
key component of leadership.
Yes, and we are going to talk about that when we get to the 4th episode of this month, Kirk's leadership, because I've got some very, very concrete ideas
Because
about that.
I mean, that's the key part of leadership is, well, where do you want to take people?
Right.
That's right. Ideas themselves may or may not be good, and actions that result from ideas may or may not be good as a result of that. Vision helps focus those in the proper...
Right.
Yes.
And we are presuming that the vision is good, because obviously Hitler had a vision, but it was a very bad vision.
Right, right.
Stalin had a very bad vision. So did all the great bad guys of history.
Yeah.
But because I am perfectly willing to put value judgments, say something is good or bad.
Absolutely.
Yes.
In fact, we
A
must.
value
And we
judgment
must.
on an idea is crucial.
Right. And, and people today are willing, because as we were talking about earlier, people are willing to do that. But unfortunately, they're willing to do it to the detriment of ideas. And they're driving people away from the doing because they're afraid to speak out or to say something that might be controversial. Controversy is part and parcel of the intellectual growth of humanity.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have controversy, you don't have something to think about. If you don't have something to think
You've
about,
got to let ideas battle.
right? And that's what we try and do here. Is one of us almost always takes the curmudgeon point of view, just to explore the differences.
Well,
Yes.
in order to make the podcast as good as it can be, we kind of have to do that at some point. Because
we may not actually believe that. Our personal opinion might not be that that the opposite is true is what we're discussing, but we have to explore sometimes.
Well,
Not always. We have to explore it.
Right. When you temper a blade, you're putting it under stress.
Right.
You're putting it in the furnace and heating it up.
testing it and tempering.
And putting it in the quench. And that's what makes a great blade. Ideas are the same way. You have to heat them up. You have to put them under duress and stress and quench them and see where they come out. And the great ideas survive that process.
Right. If it has value, it will survive. It may not survive in the immediate term. It may have to be dredged up later because sometimes good ideas get quenched.
Sometimes, sometimes you put the blade on the shelf and then you come back to it when you need it.
Right.
Maybe you transform it.
And, right. Maybe
Maybe this doesn't work worth a damn. I've got to do something completely different.
Right.
We talked about Edison and his 10,000 failures. Well, that's what eventually led to the light bulb because he did not give up.
And again, that's what I see as what has been so great about the American psyche, the American dream, and the ideal is that willingness to do that.
Yeah.
We talk about our country as a great experiment in self-governance because at the time we started it, it was an unheard of thing.
Yeah, to have a country based on a document, not just geography.
Right.
Was
divine right of kings.
Yeah, it was
or
a
power
unique,
even. Military power.
Yeah, it was a unique thing to say, all right, we're going to hold these truths as self-evident.
Right. So the Declaration of Independence is the idea.
Yeah.
It is the idea and the Constitution, the birth of the government that helps guide us is the doing.
The doing.
I mean, I think you could make
what does that idea mean in a practical sense in a way we could all live together?
Right. We tried it with the Articles of Confederation. Didn't work.
Yeah, because we lose that notion that, well, what's the point of a government? It's so we can live together.
Right.
As equals.
It is the social contract given form.
Yeah.
That's what we've done.
And we lose that idea. We don't want to live together sometimes. It's like, no,
and we're seeing that
we
today.
have to. We have to live together.
We have no choice.
And this is the way we can do it that respects each other the most. We've got to learn to live together.
Can't we all just get along?
Yeah. Man, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Real quick, though, before we move on, a shout to the creators again. Nicholas Meyer.
Yes.
Harv Bennett for Wrath of Khan.
Yes, because both of ours were out of Wrath of Khan.
And who wrote The Ultimate Computer?
Oh, you're not supposed to ask me that because I haven't looked it up.
Was it Gene Kuhn?
Actually, I believe it was.
It's almost certainly. He wrote so many of those good episodes.
Well, he was
one of the great writers.
He was leaving very, very quickly around that time. to which is just kind of the way that works. But it was actually written by D.C. Fontana.
Oh, well, that would have been the next best bet. Yeah, she was phenomenal.
And John Meredith Lucas directed it, who directed a lot of those early episodes. But she actually based it on a story by a man named Lawrence N. Wolfe. So it's kind of a polyglot of things. But
you know what that is.
But the dialogue, though, is...
Well,
is
that's
DC
correct. She would have done
Fontana.
that. Kuhn, I guarantee you, had things to do with that. Roddenberry, this is second season. He would have had some of that.
But you know what that story is? It's one of our favorite stories. It's Frankenstein.
Well, absolutely it is.
It's a technological Frankenstein.
Very much so. It's a creator
creation
who creates something, abandons it, does not give it what it needs. It's flawed and does not live up to the responsibilities that go inherently with the creation.
I don't think he abandons it.
Well, it's a little nuanced.
But
He doesn't give it what it needs.
well, exactly. That's what I mean. That's a form of abandonment.
It's a creation that goes beyond what was expected.
But in different ways that are totally...
Yeah, I mean, it's revisited in Star Trek many times. Obviously, V'ger is the same idea.
Yeah.
So from
Nomad, yeah, exactly. The Nomad, the Changeling. I mean, it's something that's the same type of thing. But
and each time, Kirk talks them to death.
well, exactly. Right. Hey,
but sometimes talking hammers out the idea. That's the doing.
Right.
That's
and
right.
figuring it out.
Exactly.
And saying, V'ger, we're the creator. You've got to trust us here.
Yes, sir.
So
That does not compute. Carbon-based units are not true life forms.
Yeah, well...
That's right. Let me show you some of that.
all right. Francis, what's next, man? And yes, it's more about...
The Shatner-paloozza continues. Yes, we're the second
Man, I hope
part.
he appreciates this shit.
You know what? I bet he would get a great kick out of this.
Well, somebody clue him in.
Well, I mean, he's very protective of his legacy and his reputation.
Yes, I mean,
rightfully so. I follow him on Twitter, so yeah, he doesn't suffer fools. I'd like to think the glowing tribute that we're going to pay to the great Mr. Shatner in this next episode would put a smile on his face because it's his birthday.
This is an Our Heroes episode.
It's an Our Heroes episode.
So it's not about Kirk.
It's not about Kirk. It's
about
about
Shatner, the
William
man.
Shatner himself, the actor who, like him or not like him, the man knows his craft. And
Yes.
he knows his brand, and he's done damn well at it. You called him a cultural icon and cultural force. Very much so. He's been one of my heroes since the very beginning, and I know all of us here together. We're going to talk about the man a little bit and all that craft he does and the wonderful guy that he really is, actually. If you learn anything about him, he really is a great guy. We're going to talk about him next episode.
Hope you enjoyed another pointless discussion of eternal questions. Remember, new episodes published every Friday at noon Eastern.
Spread the word. We're on all the major podcast platforms. And leave us a comment or review because that helps others find us.
We're on Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website, snakesandotters.com.
I'm Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis. Join us next week, same snake time, same otter channel.